Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton's Communications and Marketing Department. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about family relationships. My guest is Alvean Lyons, our resident expert.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome.
Thanks.
We're going to talk today about how two parents communicate and get on the same page with parenting. And you know, that's not easy.
Not at all. Not at all. It really is one of the most challenging parts of the process. A lot of times we think that the person that we love or care about or decided that we're going to create this new life with, that we're on the same page and we want the same things for our kids. But all too often we discover after the kids get here, not so much.
Well, we want the same things, but the path toward them may be a little different.
Absolutely. Because we come into the process with what we experienced. You know, the world isn't as it is, it's as we are.
Right.
So we view it through that lens, and we parent through that lens, we do friendships through that lens, we partner through that lens, and we don't. It's very challenging to recognize that someone else could have a very different set of lenses in which they're looking at the very same thing. And those coming together in order to raise a child or children can be a real challenge.
Yeah, and I think, you know, my lens is better than your lens. Because it's right. And if I just kept saying it, you'd see that too.
Right, and if you just listen, you'd recognize that I have superior intellect when it comes to these issues.
Of course.
Right, and lots of us believe that. We would never dare say it,
No,
but on the inside,
yeah.
we kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
And it comes through to our partners even when we don't say it, because they recognize the fact that we have not let that bone go is because we're convinced that this is the one you need to accept. So we have to be very careful about that process. It's normal for all of us, so it's in no way to suggest that there's something wrong with you if you see the world that way. But the thing that's very important when we're parenting is that we have to recognize that our partners may not see the world that way.
And I think you don't know those conflicts until they happen, because you do agree on the big end goals. Here's our philosophy of life and what we want our kids to be and what we want our life to be. It's just that until something happens you disagree about, you're like, but how did that happen? We agree. This is.
I thought we agreed.
Now.
And the answer is, and that's so great that you said it that way, because that's so true. We both agree that we want to get to Arizona. But what we did not agree on is whether we were flying, taking a train, a boat, or whether or not we were walking. It's how we get there that is very different. And that's the thing that's the most challenging part. It's not always where we're going, because everybody wants their kids to be happy and capable and experience their dreams. And we all have very similar desires and dreams for our children and for our families. But how we believe you achieve those things, how we go about getting those, can be profoundly different. So the conversations that need to happen at the adult level are enormously important, just enormous.
They are. And then, you know, if they come up because of a disagreement, then you've got to resolve the immediate disagreement and then also figure out how to get further down the path from there.
Very true, because it's very emotionally charged. Yeah. And the worst time to negotiate anything is when it's emotionally charged, right? Because all we want is to win in the conversation. We really stop thinking about the end goal as much as it is about us winning in this, that you will see it from my perspective. But when we back away from it to get the emotions out of it, and you're never going to have them completely out of it, because you're talking about your kids.
Right.
You know, you're talking about your family, the things that we care most about.
And it also ties back to you're talking about me and how I was raised, or you're talking about, you know, it's loaded.
And that's so interesting that you would say that, because that's very true. Because on some level, if you want to do it differently than the way that I want to do it, I may process that as a rejection of me, or me not being good enough. And really, that's not what the issue is. It's just a different perspective, and different doesn't mean deficient. It just means different. That where you grew up perhaps in the city and where I grew up in the country, there are different ways in which we came into our adulthood. There are different ways in which we approached, you know, building friends and relationships, how we start our first job, what age you start a first job at, when do responsibilities begin, how do you hold a young man or a young woman accountable? Do you believe in corporal punishment, or do you believe that it's let's talk it through? We have different perspectives about how those things happen. And depending upon how you were raised and you believe you turned out good, you tend to walk into it believing that if we do it the way I was raised, our son or daughter will turn out just fine.
Exactly.
And the reality is that there are no guarantees in that. There are no guarantees if we do it the way that every expert in the books say that it's going to come out perfect.
Well, and every kid is different. And so
Absolutely.
we may have agreed on this is the philosophy. We're going to let the baby cry it out, and we're going to follow and it doesn't work. Well, now what? You know,
Right.
How do you negotiate?
Because we haven't slept in a week.
Next?
Okay, so now we have to come up with another plan.
Right.
And it's true. And that really begins with us sitting down and being honest about some things. So the first step is recognizing that A, when we are co-parenting, it doesn't always mean that we're co-partnering. There's a difference, because co-parenting says that we both have to raise this child. We have to do this together. But in order to do it effectively, we have to be partners in this process. So just because we're parenting doesn't actually mean that we are partnering. We have to partner in order to do this well. Okay. Because what we do not want to happen is that our kids are receiving two divergent messages from us. Nobody can be successful with that. I mean, think about it at the adult level. If we go to a job and we have two bosses of equal value and importance who are giving us different instructions about what we're supposed to do, and then evaluating our success based on their measure of instructions, who will you ever be able to please? How do you do your job well? So our responsibility when we take that to a child level is to understand that it is only fair to our child if we give them one message. They only have the ability to be able to please one message. So we want to make sure that we have agreed, even if some of the things you want and some of the things I want may not be present in our collective message, the things that are most important to us are, and that's the unified message the child gets. Because we give our children negative power when we do the two different messages.
Right.
Because
they begin to play you
they
off
play
each
you
other.
against
they go to
each
the
other.
one who they think is going to give the answer
Absolutely.
they want.
Because water always seeks the lowest level. So whichever parent is going to be perfectly happy with my C-, that's the parent I want to go to. But if the other parent says that our standard in this house academically is that we are B or better students, and then the other parent says that C- is passing, dude, so that's good enough, do understand there are very few children who are so self-motivated that they're like, I'm not doing anything less than a B+. You know, their C- sounds good. 70, I'm out of here. So we want to make sure that we've agreed what it is that we're saying is the standard in our household. And just because we did something personally and we made it, we have to understand that sometimes our success may have been the exception to the rule. So because it worked for us.
Or the whole world is different than it was when I was growing up.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, when we start looking at how much technology has changed the experiences we have, now we don't have to worry just about the crazy neighbor or, you know, the party that isn't properly supervised. But they have access to the internet all day long. They have ability to connect with people in whole other countries. There are so many things that were not present when we were younger, which only heightens the importance of us effectively parenting, the importance of us effectively modeling what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. We're not going to always see it the same way. Us and our partners are not going to always have the same vision, but how we display that in front of our kids is very important.
So what do you do?
Well,
how do you get to this unified partner parenting?
Okay. Well, we have to recognize that neither one of us is going to get everything we want in this process. So don't go into it looking to make sure that I get 7, he gets 3, that's 10. That's not what we're trying to achieve. Okay. We want to make sure that we equally try to get as much as we think is really important in where the kids are concerned. Function from the place of common perspective. We both want them to be successful academically. Okay, well, what is that going to mean? Well, we know that means that they're going to have to study. We know that that means that they're going to have to participate in class, You go down the list and we say, okay, so here are the things that we both can agree are necessary. Bam, that's number 1. So that we start at common places.
Okay.
And you build from common ground. Because if you start at the places that we disagree on, the tendency is to believe that we are never going to see things the same way. So I'll parent the way I want to and you parent the way you want to, and that is not helpful where the kids are concerned. So instead, build from places of common ground. Where can we say that these are things that we both want? And okay, you want him to study for 2 hours. I think he needs to study for an hour. Let's compromise. An hour and a half per night. Let's see what results that provides for us.
And I think that's part of the key is to not get so focused on the individual strategies that you forget the results.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I had one kid who had to be awakened 3 times every morning in order to get up,
Right.
and I enforced bedtime for him.
Right.
At the other kid, if you get yourself up at 6 in the morning and I don't need to hassle you, then apparently you're getting enough sleep. So we can negotiate with
Absolutely.
you a little bit
Absolutely.
more. So it's not this hard and fast, I believe bedtime should be X, but let's see how you're responding and how you're functioning.
Is it working? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. What we did with child A may not work on child B, may not work at all on child C. So is it working? And that's where we have to be mildly flexible as parents in recognizing that you're parenting individual children. You are not parenting a household as if it is one collective, but you are parenting a collection of individuals. And we have to tweak our styles to be able to meet that person. We certainly wouldn't want, if our spouses, you know, dated somebody prior to us or were married to somebody prior to us, for them to think that our relationship is going to be what that relationship was.
Right.
It's no different when we're parenting our children. What worked for your sister may not be the same thing for you or for your brother. So we do have to be flexible in those things, but we have to recognize that whatever we're going to approach, the most effective way to do it is if we do it together.
And if we focus on the outcomes. I think, too,
Absolutely.
because that is the part we do agree on.
Absolutely, that we want this.
Yes,
right,
we agree
at
on the
end.
outcome. So maybe we compromise on the strategies or
process.
test them and then see what happens. So if this is
Absolutely.
the rule and you get an A or a B, then that'll work. But if your grades begin to slip, then we're gonna change and go to the more structured homework time or
Absolutely.
whatever that is.
And ultimately, we want 3 things where our kids are concerned. We want them to be socially healthy, we want them to be emotionally healthy, and we want them to be academically successful. I always say it's navigating the sea. We don't want our kids to drown, so SEA. We want to keep them above board. So we have to look at what are the things that are going to be necessary for that to be possible. And if we can agree on the outcomes and negotiate on the process, we have a much better possibility of being able to meet the individual needs of each of our kids. But we've got to do this thing together.
Now, what happens when you have a disagreement in the heat of the moment, the kid's in the same room, or you know, maybe you shoo them into the next room, but they're going to hear this discussion. How do you keep it from being overly emotional and from attacking each other and that sort of thing?
Well, the thing that's very interesting, and men tend to do this pretty well, in all honesty, we women are a little bit different because of our emotional center. But you can't fight with somebody who's not fighting back with you. It's very hard to do. So sometimes it means that one of us has to decide to disengage from the process. That the thing is that we can see that this train is getting ready to come off of its rails.
Yep.
And nothing good comes out of that. So ultimately, one of us has to decide that I am no longer going to be pressing the gas on this train. One of us has to make that decision. And it requires a level of personal maturity that's not always easy, because you may be 100% right. It does happen. But what do you want for the outcome to be? And sometimes I say that the easiest thing to remember is that the mission has to be greater than the moment. In the moment, you may be right, you may be angry, you may be disappointed, you could even be hurt. But if the mission is healthy, socially, emotional, and academic children, is what's going on in the moment more important than the mission? So that sometimes means we have to be mature enough to step back and say, you know what, honey? This is not going where either of us wants it to go. So I'm not gonna say another word. You say what you decide that you want to say. But I think it's probably best if we continue this conversation later. And later away from the children. Because everything that they witness, they are taking in even when we don't see it. They are making decisions about themselves. They are making decisions about healthy relationships or not healthy relationships. They're making so many internal decisions, witnessing what it is that we're doing. We want to model the healthiest possible examples we can for them. So that sometimes means that we have to be even more mature than we really want to be in a given moment.
Or, you know, maybe you show the kids the right way to negotiate, which is, let's take a step back, let's calm down, let's focus on what the outcome we want is, and let's see how we can compromise. I mean, that would give them an amazing message.
Absolutely, because it's not, people disagree. And it's okay to disagree.
Oh my gosh, your friends, your work life, your partners, it's going to happen throughout your life.
Okay to disagree.
And sometimes we avoid it rather than showing our kids
do it well
how to do
and
it.
healthily. Absolutely, because it's how you fight, not whether or not you fight. Okay? Like, it's okay that we can do that, and most of the research says that fighting can be healthy, depending upon how you do it and where you do it. Are you interested in attacking each other, or are you attacking the issue? And there's a difference. Attacking the issue can be very productive. Attacking each other is never productive.
That's right. And I'm just going to guess that this whole issue escalates like crazy when you have divorced or separated parents.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, getting two people who are partners on the same page to be partners is one thing, but getting two people who are no longer partners to work on this very important joint thing of raising their children
is a real challenge.
Yeah.
And that's very, very true, because now I don't even have a vested interest in this thing going really well between us, because I may not see us as a team anymore. But the thing that we have to remember is that we are still a team for the benefit of our kids. That we don't have to like each other, we don't have to love each other, but we have to want the best for our child. And that's bigger than both of us. So that means that we have to separate our own personal feelings and personal agendas from what we agree is the best possible outcome for our child. And that may mean that we may not discuss A, B, and C, but we do have to discuss D, E, and F in these ways.
Right.
So it still requires a level of maturation from both parties in the process. But certainly one person has to be 100% sure that I'm not going to let my emotions completely derail what it is that I need for my kid.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to go back and I'm going to work on the partnering aspect there and see if I can make that be a little better.
You let us know how it goes.
Thank you. I think with your tips, it'll be better than it was yesterday. We'll see. Hopefully, we all keep learning and growing. This is not something that you learn once from a TV show and put into practice easily. We come back, we think about it, and we all keep working on how to be better parents and better partners. Thank you for watching.